People come, people go. People join and people quit. People sign up and people sign off. People walk in and people walk out. Every club, organization, social gathering, every church experiences the vacillation of people. Just listen to these numbers. There are 61 million Catholics in the United States. 26% of the 61 million attend Mass. And 74% of the 61 million do not go to church. That means on a regular basis, 17 million Catholics go to church. That also means, this is just unbelievable, 44 million Catholics do not go to church at all. So you got to say to yourself, why is that? What's going on in our society nowadays that makes so many people join the church and then make so many people leave the church? What's wrong with our society? Pope Francis is going to be in the United States in a month from now. And hopefully the church leaders will share with the Pope that 44 million Catholics don't go to church. Hopefully they don't brag about the fact that 61 million Catholics exist in the United States. And will they tell him, will they have insight as to why all these Catholics don't go to church? Does anyone here have an idea? Any idea why all these folks aren't going to church? Anyone have an idea? Pardon me? Okay, leadership. That's a good reason. Anyone else have an idea why so many Catholics don't go to church? Well, here's what we're going to find. It turns out to be that the idea of joining a church, the Catholic Church, and then leaving, it has nothing to do with our society nowadays, 2015. Because today's gospel reading is going to give us a very interesting insight. People have been leaving the church from the very beginning. Let's take a look at the 65th verse of the 6th chapter of John that I just read a moment ago. Look at this. And hopefully you'll be able to catch the nuance that is written inside of here. Many of his disciples, that's third person singular, so that's a reference to Jesus. Many of Jesus' disciples returned to their former way of life and no longer accompanied him. That is powerful. You know what that means? That means, well, Jesus was walking on the face of the earth. He had boots on the ground. He picks his 12 disciples. He sends those 12 men out, plus himself, and they're out there to get converts to Christianity, and they are initially successful. But then it turns out to be that not a few, that word starts with the beginning of the sentence, says many. Many of his disciples, these folks who said, yes, we're going to join the church, we're going to follow you, Jesus, not one or two, not a few, but many decided to return to their former way of life. They gave up the church. So not only did people give up the church 2015, what's absolutely amazing, they quit on Jesus. He's standing there, and they walked away. The former way of life was what? There were two groups of people. There were Jews who had a religion called Judaism, and from that group they were able to garner initially some converts to Christianity. And if you weren't a Jew, you belonged to the Gentile group. They were pagans. They didn't have any religion. And from the Gentiles, they were initially able to garner people to convert to Christianity. But then Jesus and his disciples, early success, but then failure initially. That a lot of these people, many, returned to their former way of life, and there it is. And they no longer accompanied him. That's a reference to Jesus. They stopped walking with Jesus. How many people would we say comprise that group? Well, the word many, I think, is a pretty large number. Can we assign the percentage that we use today, the 74% of Catholics don't go to church? Can 74% make up the word many? All we know is this: many is a large number. And they quit on Jesus. Now here's what happens in human civilization. Humans will always find a reason to do what they want to do. And humans, every one of us, will always find a reason not to do what we don't want to do. If there's something you don't want to do, you're going to find a reason not to do it. It might be a reason that's readily available and accessible to you. It might be a reason that you can take a little bit of work to find. But if you don't want to do something, you're going to find a reason. 44 million Catholics find a reason not to go to church. And back in those days, right in the face of Jesus Christ, they left the church back then. So is there something wrong with our society nowadays that so many people walk away? Well, that's unfortunate, but nothing's changed. We don't live in a worse world now than when the world Jesus lived in, because even when he was here, they walked away on him right in front of him. You know, there's an interesting little jingle. I just want to share this with you because it really shows that people always find a reason to leave. Let's take a look at this little jingle. 10 little Christians came to church all the time. One fell out with the pastor, then there were 9. 9 little Christians stayed up too late. One overslept on Sunday, then there were 8. 8 little Christians on their jolly way to heaven. One took a side road, and now there are 7. 7 little Christians chirping like chicks. One didn't like the singing, then there were 6. 6 little Christians all seemed very much alive. One took a permanent vacation, and then there were 5. 5 little Christians, each asking for more. One thought church was a waste, and then there were 4. 4 little Christians, each busy as a bee. One got his feelings hurt, and then there were 3. 3 little Christians couldn't decide what to do. One couldn't have his way, and then there were 2. 2 little Christians, each one wanting to win one more. Now, with that in mind, don't you see that 2 and 2 make 4? 4 little Christians all worked early and late. Each one brought one, and now there are 8. 8 little Christians, if they double as before, in just 7 Sundays would have 1,024. In this little jingle, there is a lesson true. You either belong to the building or to the wrecking crew. There's always reason to join, and there's always reason to leave, and there's always reason to stay. People come, people go, people sign up, people sign off, people walk in, people walk out. What is absolutely amazing is this. Before I show you the next scriptural reference, think about it. Jesus himself, was he depressed? Did he get discouraged when he saw these people who joined his group walking away? Yes, he was depressed. He got discouraged. And he thought to himself, my hand-picked 12 disciples, maybe these guys want to leave like everyone else. And look what he says to Simon Peter. Let's take a look at verse 66 out of the 6th chapter of John. In the middle of all this defection, then Jesus said to the 12, you also want to leave me? Everyone else is. Simon Peter answered, Master, to whom shall we go? And look at this incredible insight. Master, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe, and we are convinced that you're the Holy One of God. That's why Simon Peter and the other disciples, they did not defect. They stayed because they garnered this incredible insight. Jesus, you are the Son of God. We are convinced, we have come to believe that you are the Son of God. Where can we go? Now, you're here this morning, and it's great to have you. And hopefully the reason why you're here, and hopefully the reason why you stay, and hopefully the reason why you will continue to stay is that you have come to the same conclusion as Simon Peter. Jesus, where would I go? There's nothing out there that is better than what I find in here, and that is you. That's why I stay. That's why I'm not going to walk away. The 44 million Catholics who don't go to church, should we ridicule them? Never. Should we want them back? Always, yes. And how do we get them back? Well, that's the job of all of us. If you know, and maybe you do know one of the 44 million Catholics who don't go to church. One of these Catholics might be a neighbor of yours. One might be a brother or sister. One might be a wife. One might be a child. One of yours. What should you tell them? I wouldn't browbeat them. I wouldn't tell them every Sunday or every day you got to go to church, because they're going to get sick of hearing that. Maybe you walk away for good and put the deadbolt on the door, which will never open on the way back into the church. I would just simply say, for someone who doesn't go to church, if you know someone who doesn't, and they are a Catholic and they walked away, they're not doing anything different than people did back in the time of Jesus, because that happened to him, and he got discouraged. But I would tell you what I would say to them. I would ask them to turn to the 6th chapter of John, verse 66. And look at what Simon Peter said. If they could come to that same realization as Simon Peter, they'll realize that Jesus, there it is. To whom shall I go? You have the words of eternal life, and that's what I want at the end of this world. We have come to believe, we are convinced that you are the Holy One of God. So if you know someone who doesn't go to church, who is Catholic and has walked away for whatever reason, tell them, go to John chapter 6, verse 66. Hopefully they will come to the same realization that Simon Peter did. I'm glad that you are here this morning. Hopefully you stay. Hopefully you'll stay into the future. Because hopefully all of you realize what Simon Peter realized. Because once you realize those words, you'll never leave the church, because there's nothing better out there than you'll find in here. And I'll leave you with those powerful words of Simon Peter. When Jesus, in great depression, discouragement, seeing everyone defect his church, he looks at the 12 and says, guys, you want to leave too? Everyone else is. But Simon Peter answered, Master, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe, and we are convinced that you are the Holy One of God. That's why I stay.